You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SEBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SEBO. When it comes to trading volatility, trust SEBO, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. SEBO's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back, ready to commence operations on what should be another fun-filled week here on the old Options Insider Radio Network. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you're rested up and raring and ready to go. I certainly am. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the THE OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you have been binging these days. A lot to unpack here on the show as I am joined by my compatriots, the uncleist of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. I do believe back from his globe-trotting or at least coast-hopping adventures, as well as by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. I introduce them now because we're going to have to get to a little bit of wrestling fun in a second. Of course, if you like what you hear, this show, anything else on the network, you know what to do by now. Throw a rating, a star, or like, a comment. Whatever the legion of platforms out there let you do. All of it in aggregate helps new people discover the content. And then, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, come up to the end of the year. Maybe you want to treat yourself with a little bit of fun over there. Join the pro. It's a fun place to be. Just a good group of people to hang out with. If you want to check it out for yourselves, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Of course, gives you access to great pro Q&As. Getting a double pro Q&A palooza this week. So get in there this week if you haven't, because fun to be had. Of course, options oddities at the end of the week. 250, closing in on 300 now episodes on that exclusive feed for you folks to mainline, as well as, of course, great giveaways and a whole bunch more. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go, as it is time for us to go now into one of our final kickoff segments of the year, it is time for a little bit of 80s wrestling trivia. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome to a little bit of 80s wrestling, where we attempt to stump these two with some fun trivia geared around everyone's favorite topic, 80s professional wrestling. And today's person is one we have done before, but it has been a little while. He's very much back in the headlines again with what he's doing at one of the other promotions outside of WWE. And in fact, that's appropriate for him, because when I think of this wrestler, I think of him as, he was in the WWF in the 80s for a little bit, but I think of him more as an outside guy. In fact, there are a lot of people out there, when you name the biggest wrestlers of all time, the most over, the most popular, most people go to Hulk Hogan in the 80s, and it's hard to dispute that. It really was the biggest thing ever in the history of wrestling. Even people like Andrew know who Hulk Hogan is. But for a certain element of the audience, certainly people who didn't watch as much WWE, maybe they watched, Sebastian already buzzing it, they watched outside stuff, or maybe they came to it a little bit later. This person is one who they think of as perhaps the biggest, not literally, but the biggest, most popular wrestler of all time, or maybe the most important. Call it what you will out there. He's certainly in the argument for some folks up there with Hogan. I say he's back again right now because he's hawking an energy drink. All right, Mark was there. I had some fun things to say, but I will not say anymore. Uncle Mike is getting mad because Mark already buzzed. He thinks I'm giving him an advantage. The guy's losing by a bazillion points, Mr. Uncle Mike. You could at least let me finish my thought. But I will.
We don't pity the poor here.
All right, Mr. Meatball, sir, have at it. Who am I talking
Flair.
about? Yes.
Flair.
Yes. Ric Flair, you are correct. Yes, the one, the only, the nature boy. By all accounts, a pretty terrible guy. What I was going to say is what I brought up last year, which is still to me a shocking thing. It sounds like the kind of thing he would make up, but in reality, it sounds like it is true. He was kidnapped by child traffickers as an infant and sold, effectively, because he was adopted out of an orphanage in Tennessee as an infant. And it turns out a few years later, that orphanage was shut down because the owner, the operator, was going out and effectively kidnapping, stealing, or buying children, and then bringing them to his orphanage and then whatever, selling them to adoptive parents, whatever he was doing. So there's a good chance Ric Flair as an infant was kidnapped by child traffickers and sold to his adoptive parents, which is just horrific, but that's where he's back in the headlines now because he's out there hawking an energy drink. I was going to mention, if you couldn't get it, I was going to mention the name of the energy drink, which is Woo Energy. That would, of course, given you the headline as well. So he's back in the headlines. Also, very controversial yet again, as always, as this guy tends to be. But there you go, the nature boy Ric Flair, as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show we break down what the heck is trading. Looks like in our audience, our live chat, Nichols was early in the live chat, and he got it right away. Ric Flair, he knew. So yeah, people maybe saying maybe that's why he's such a jerk. Maybe. I don't know. Watch the Dark Side of the Ring about that guy sometime if you're intrigued by why he is probably so unpopular with a lot of people as well. Just a pretty toxic and awful guy, which a lot of these people seem to be at the end of the day, but he certainly is up there. As we keep on rolling out there into what's going on in the markets, toxic and awful today? Well, not really. Kind of depends where, I guess, you hang your hat out there. It's another day where the markets are kind of struggling to find their way. Are they up? Are they down? Are they green? Are they red? We were slightly red to start, then we were green. Now we're back in the green again, but the NASDAQ has dipped back into the red slightly. It's pretty much unched on the day. Right now, S&P up not even 0.25%, about 0.2%. And the Dow up about almost a little over a quarter, about 1/3%. Of course, we are back over that mythical 4,600 level. Will it hold? Of course, Fed coming up this week, so no level is safe at this point. Can we retest 4,000? Can we break through 5,000 on the upside? Who knows? Fed weeks, as we all learned last time, all bets are off when Powell and company start talking. But right now, we are mostly green out there. I guess you know what? We'll make it the tiebreaker. We'll go out to our old friend IWM. And that will, IWM up about a little over 1/10 of a point as well. So I guess we are mostly green on the day today. But it looks like, at least right now, kind of a bit of a keep your powder dry kind of day. A VIX right now, kind of treading water, 1270, down about 0.3 of a point from the Thursday show. VVIX 82, down about 4 points, starting to get down into that seasonally low territory we expect this time of year. VXX 1640, down about almost 0.75 of a point, about 0.7 of a point. UVXY 9.25, down 0.6 of a point from the Thursday show. SVIX 36, up 1.25 from last show. And UVIX 15 handle now, 1570, down a little over a point, about 1.4 points from the Thursday show. A lot to unpack. Let's go out to our winner for this week. I'll have to tally up the points and see how close he is. But Mr. Meatball, A, are you familiar with that story? I think we talked about it last time we talked about Ric Flair, about him being kidnapped and trafficked at birth. B, any other enduring memories of the Nature Boy? And C, what's catching your eye out there in the markets today, sir?
Yeah, I think the big thing that sticks out is how the WWF completely fumbled his first kind of tour through the WWF when he came in the early 90s. He was set to do a WrestleMania with Hulk Hogan, and I want to say WrestleMania 8. And Vince McMahon just, because he's not 6'7" and 300 pounds, Vince McMahon just couldn't realize that, that was the match everyone wanted to see. And they ended up not doing it. The only time Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair really fought was in a couple of house shows and in the Royal Rumble, that Ric Flair notably came in third and then ended up winning. And instead of Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, which everybody would have wanted to see, they did Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice. For those of you who don't know, that is Sid Vicious, just with Justice for some reason when he came to the WWF. And it was just a terrible match. And I just don't fully understand why the WWF couldn't see that was the fight everyone wanted.
Wasn't Flair pushing 50 at that point as well?
What?
Wasn't Flair pushing 50 at that point as well? He was getting up there.
He was pushing older, but it's not like Hulk Hogan was a spring chicken.
That is true.
None of those guys are. And it's amazing how old some of these guys are now. Chris Jericho is in his 50s, just to put things in perspective.
And still actively wrestling. How crazy is that?
And still actively wrestling. That would be the big thing I would say. Now, Mark, what I would say for the markets today is that it is a rotation day. So yeah, the S&P is barely up. It's about 0.2%. But then look at the equal weighted index, RSP. It's up 0.8%. The reason why it's not up more is that MGK, those mega caps, are all getting hammered. Apple's down 1.6%, Amazon down 1.1%, Nvidia down 2.25%, Meta down 2.5%, Microsoft 1.3%, Tesla 1.8%. So what we have today is a mega cap, a Mag 7 sell and a buy everything else kind of day. Little not as much action in the Russell 2000, although that's been hot. But that's kind of the trend today, is that we're seeing a lot of the outside of the top 7 names having a really strong day, while the rest of the market kind of sits back and does nothing.
We're not going to do nothing on the show, that's for sure, even though that is a double negative, listeners. We got some fun content coming from you, or for you, I should say, including the return to St. Charles of one Uncle Mike TOSAW. Mr. Uncle Mike, A, how was your trip to San Diego? Did you get to have some delicious Dole Whip on the boardwalk there? One of my favorite things to do out there. B, what enduring memories are there, if you have any, from your buddy, the Nature Boy? B, I did just look. The most recent point total I have for you, Sebastian, goes back to early October. And at the time, you were winning by 6.5 points. It was 14.5 to 8. Sebastian has closed that a little bit. I will get a more updated point total for the show next week. So it's probably within 4 points, maybe. But still, he has an uphill climb. But B, if you have any enduring thoughts of the Nature Boy, have at it. And then C, what's catching your eye in an Uncle Mike type of day, sir?
What's that? So, hold on. We have a point dispute here. What was that, Mark?
I said, shouldn't I get some bonus points because I chimed in so early?
Bonus points. No, there's no bonus points, at least for right now. Unless Uncle Mike agrees to bonus points to make it a more compelling game. It's up to him. He's in the lead right now.
I think we should give Andrew some bonus points, but that's it.
I should get Andrew's points.
Andrew has
and then I'll be winning.
Andrew has 3 bonus points already, and most of those are bonus because he could name Hulk Hogan or Macho Man.
Fair enough. Oh, well, I mean, in terms of so I had a great trip out west, got to see some clients. I literally can say I went from Phoenix, Arizona, all the way to Tacoma last week. So honoring the Steve Miller Band song of Rockin' Me, Baby. And so, yeah, it was a good trip. It was very much, I'm either driving to see a client or talking to a client, but it was long overdue, needed to do it. And so glad I did it. And so for the next couple of years, just want to be able to get to see all my clients as best as I can. But the Option Block podcast keeps sending me so many of them. It's hard to do it all at once. But anyway, my enduring memories of the Nature Boy. Totally agree with Mark Sebastian on that. Biggest travesty in the history of wrestling that Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair did not fight. That was back when they were in their primes, or it was later in their primes, but they were still in their primes when Flair came over to the WWF, and it's just really sad that they weren't able to do that or make that happen, unfortunately. Some of my other memories of him, I mean, he's the kiss stealing, wheeling and dealing, limousine riding, jet flying son of a gun, like that. His other sayings that he had, you may not like it, but you better learn to love it because it's the best thing going today. And of course, you got the woos in there as well. But there's never been a better talker in the history of the sport of wrestling, no doubt about that. No one can do interviews quite like Ric Flair. And, when they did the 30 for 30 documentary on him a couple of years ago, it really bummed me out because it just talked about the whole time about like what a degenerate of a human he was, which it's not denying that in a lot of areas. But what I wanted to see is that I wanted to see interviews like, yeah, at Starrcade, I wanted to do this and that, but it wasn't about the wrestling at all. It was just about his lifestyle. And I'm about the wrestling, man. That's what I want to see. I don't care if he's out smoking dope with Mike Tyson and pitching the Ric Flair drip and the Mike Tyson drip or whatever. But as a wrestler, Ric Flair was the man. No denying that whatsoever. He is done more. Hulk Hogan even says he's the best ever. And so those are my memories of Flair. But anyway, in terms of this market, not getting a lot of movement. I think that we are getting the rotation as Market alluded to, but what I'm going to be curious to see is how the market reacts when, not to steal a page from Around the Block, but how the market reacts to the things with which we have coming out this week. In that we have CPI, we have a Fed meeting. So I don't, from what it seems, I think that it's going to be in line with the market's expectations overall. So I don't know if it's going to necessarily be, I do think it's probably going to be a resounding meh, as Mark Longo would put it. But there is that chance that it could be something beyond a meh, so to speak. And so, I kind of think in a lot of cases, markets are keeping their powder dry from that standpoint for people that trade and look at the market as a whole. Now, in terms of some individual names, it is a rotation from the standpoint. I'm just looking at it on my board here of some stocks that we're in for the triple income or stocks that we follow. One example, Microsoft, it's down almost $5 on the day, so over 1%. However, JP Morgan, that's up 44 cents on the day. A couple other examples, of course, Google is down over $2 on the day, 1.6%. And then, we're also getting just other areas of the market to where it's not a lot of movement. So we're getting somewhat of a sell-off in technology, but things are rotating, things are doing different things, and overall it adds up to a big wall of nothing if you're an index investor today. So that's what I'm seeing right now in stocks. In the bond world, we are getting a little bit of some sales going in the 10-year as well as in corporates. We had a relatively flat week, not flat per se. There's a lot of action, but we didn't really have a lot of movement from start to finish last week in the bond world. And so on this, we're starting to be get some sellers in the bond market at this stage. And it's going to be interesting to see how they react to the Fed, even if the Fed does pause like I think they're going to do. So that's what I'm seeing right now. And woo! That's all.
Uncle Mike calling for a pause. That means a half-point hike coming this week. Strap in, listeners.
Done.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine such a thing? What a week it would be in the markets, listeners. Let's just put it that way. Let's see what kind of day we're having in the markets right now. And given everything I said at the top of the show, you might be forgiven for expecting a kind of day. Is it that? I guess my answer is kind of revealing. Kind of, but also kind of not, which is interesting. Let's start in VIX land, where we are wont to do. And VIX may surprise you right now. VIX kind of roaring back to life here, at least from a volume perspective right now. Looking pretty action-packed. 517,000 contracts on the tape right now, listeners. That's against an ADV of just 640. So at this pace, it's going to hit it before the end of the show. So VIX lighting it up out there today. Let's go see what is driving all this action. Looks like about 78,000 of the D17s have gone up today. Interesting. So it looks like we're getting, these are the regular monthlies. So these are not in the weeklies like we're used to seeing. So these go out next week, next Wednesday. So looks like maybe we got a little bit of maybe a post. Let's see. Are these? I can't tell if they're opening. There is size OI on that strike. So that could be dumping. Let me just look here really quickly. It went up for 13 cents. Kind of mid-market. So they could be bailing on these potentially. Or they could be putting on a last-minute kind of upside swing against some crazy Fed action this week. Maybe what I just said about the half-point cut. Maybe they have a little bit of inside track. Either way, 78,000 of the D17s. Listeners, 78,000 D17s going out next week for 13 cents. Are you a buyer or are you a seller at that level? Interesting. Someone's putting up nearly 100,000 of them today. So that's what's leading the dance out there in VIX land. Followed by number 2, 44,000 of the D's 12 half puts. Looks like paper buying those for prices around a quarter. So buying downside puts going out next week and buying upside calls also going out next week. So strangle, you can buy that strangle for 38 cents right now, listeners. I don't know. Interesting. I've heard crazier things. SPY, though. SPY looking like you would expect. A sluggish, kind of slow day. 3.81 million only. So that's well below what we've seen for SPY this time of the show. In fact, let's just re-rack SPY right now. Maybe he had a nice little last-minute pop out here. We're almost at 4 million now. 3.97. That's a little bit more respectable, but still, usually we expect on a slow day 4.3, and lately we've been seeing 4.5 million. So that's a little light from a SPY vantage point. The ADV 7.25 million out there. Same deal for the S, though. Let's re-rack it to get up to the minute. Here we go. It was 1.65. Now it's 1.72 million. So a little bit more respectable. The ADV 3.05 million. So more than halfway to its ADV out there today as well. Small caps also looking a little bit light out there today. 498,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV 1.45 million. That's a lot of paper for small caps to hit today. Not sure if they're going to get there, but again, the day is young. Anything could happen out there. The Qs 2.33 million. The ADV 3.41 million. So once again, the Qs, usually this time of the show, they are well within spitting distance of their ADV, which would make you think the ADV should be higher. But clearly they maybe peter out in the second half of the session. Either way, the Q's putting up some numbers out there today. Let's see if the single names are delivering out there today. And the answer is, again, not really. Not a banger day out there. We're kicking things off at Palantir, number 10. Cost you 190,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. So it's not exactly a banger day. It's not 155, 160 like we've seen in maybe some really quiet periods. But it's not exactly lighting the world on fire either. So again, kind of a sluggish start to the week. That gets you again to Palantir. Up about a quarter right now, trading right around 18 bucks. You guys and gals know the saga of Palantir. I won't belabor it out there. For a lot of you, it's been a cheaper swing at the AI Apple, even though there's other things going on with Palantir. They're gaining contracts, they're losing contracts, a lot of drama around that front. But good for number 10, 190. Number 9, good old softy, slotting in right around kind of its usual level. It's somewhere around the 9 to 7 range usually. And that gets us to number 9, Microsoft, 231,000. So a decent jump between 10 and 9, 41,000 contracts. Softy, as the meatball alluded to, rotating out today, to put it charitably, 369 and 3/4, off about $4.50 or about 1.2%. So as he mentioned, maybe some rotation going on today, maybe some folks getting the heck out of some of these names that have been, shall we say, explosive for most of the year. Number 8, back to Alphabet. Remember last week it was Alphabet Class C that was kind of coming into the top first, which was interesting. We don't usually see them. Usually we see this one, which is the old Google, aka Alphabet Class A. 132.62, off about 240 or about 1 3/4% today. So another maybe rotation out of them day today as well. 244,000 and the number 8 spot on our list. Number 7, keeping all crypto action going out there. It's Mara, taking it on the chin a little bit today. 14.30, off about $2.50 or nearly 15% today. Mara has been on the rampage over the better part of the last month. It was $9 and change a month ago. Topped out last week 16 3/4, back down to about 14 1/4 right now. Of course, if you want more crypto drama, I'll be joined by actually our buddy Greg, who was just on Vol Views last week. He can't stop talking about Vol on the network. He'll be joining me on the Crypto Rundown a little bit later today to break down all this action, and there is a lot of it. Even if you're like Uncle Mike, you think this Bitcoin thing sucks. At the end of the day, what do options traders need? They need volume and some volatility. And you got both of those in the crypto space. So if you're looking for a little something to trade that's a little bit juicier right now, and maybe you're looking at VIX kind of like, sub 13, not blowing my skirt up, there is some action to be found out there in those crypto waters if you're down for a little bit of vol. And that's what we're getting right now. Big sell-off out there in Marathon today. Good for number 7, 245,000. Number 6, back to one of our usual suspects. It is the artist formerly known as Facebook, aka Meta. 312,000 contracts for number 6. They're off 7 3/4 or 2.3%, trading about 325 even. Again, you know the deal with these. These names are up explosively. You don't need me to regale all that for you. Instead, people taking a little bit of a break on these today. Number 5 is the Amazonians. 384,000 contracts. Amazon off $1.30 or not even a full percent, trading 146.12 right now. Keeping it in the A tech names. Let's go out to the fruit company. It's Apple, number 4, 546,000. As the meatball alluded, some folks may be rotating out of Apple today as well. 320 to the dark side of 1.6%, trading 192.5. Of course, you know their all-time high, 198 and about 1/4, so they're not that far from it. And they got a long way to go to the 52-week low of 124 and change. To the dark side. Number 3, hanging out pretty close to where it usually is these days. It's NVIDIA. You know them, you love them, maybe you hate them. 698,000 contracts on the tape for number 3. NVIDIA rotating down as well. 466.40, off about 8 2/3 or about nearly 2%, about 1.8%. They're about a little over 40 handles away from their high of 505.5. Number 2. This name trying to catapult itself into the top of the chip zone after being also ran to NVIDIA for most of the year. It's AMD, 750. They're saying, hey, wait, we got an AI chip too. Look at us. We're cool. They're rallying today, nearly $5 at 3.8%, trading 133.85. Again, all you have to do is whisper AI, just the letters AI on a conference call or anywhere, and your stock's off to the races these days. AMD still enjoying that lift out there. Let's see. Just over the last week, how much is it up? It was 116 last Wednesday. So yeah, it's up about 16, 17 handles on the week. So, or nearly 14% in the last week. So not a bad little pop for them. And then number 1, you know what it is at this point, listeners. What can dethrone Tesla? Not many things. Even though it's fairly light volume for them, 1.01 million. Usually we see them 1.3, 1.4 this time of day. Tesla off nearly $5 or about exactly 2%, trading 238.90 right now. You know their saga. 101.81 to the dark side, 299.25 to the upside. So they're not quite in the middle of that range. They're obviously above it, but not quite threatening their highs anymore either. So intriguing stuff out there for the T names. This week, in terms of intriguing things on the earnings front, we do have some names popping off. We have Oracle, pretty big one popping off today. They always like to come late in the cycle. I think they always like to do their own thing. Tomorrow, J&J. Wednesday, Adobe. Thursday, Costco. So a little bit more retail. We thought we had it all before with Walmart and Target that whole week. Nope. Costco still on the docket, as well as Leonard Homes. And then Friday, the meatball is going to be excited on Vol Views on Friday, because Friday is the announcement day for his favorite name of all time, Darden Restaurants. The man cannot get enough of Olive Garden and what else is in there? Red Lobster, all the fun. He loves it all. He can't stop eating it. Cheddar biscuits for days at Red Lobster. The meatball is the guy for it. Right now, listeners, we're looking for some new results, reports. They should be coming out any moment now. As soon as we have them, we'll give them to you up there over there on the website, theoptionsinsider.com. Right now, our most recent update from the end of last week has their season looking fairly robust. 120% is where we're clocking out at right now, which, as you can surmise, is 20% above our average of 100% right now. So, yeah, it's been a banger cycle. We've been saying all cycle. Seems like a lot of names are pricing in a lot of juice and then hitting it. And that has been the case. 120% is where we're hanging out right now, listeners. So that is a banger cycle by just about any measure. Let's see if we have a banger day on the odd front. It is time for the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the odd block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. Before I unleash our own Eye of Sauron, Mr. Meatball, you're out there always scanning, always watching. Any weird or wild or just whimsical trades come across your radar today you want to share with our folks?
Well, it was interesting on Friday at the end of the day. I don't know if you saw these JWN calls go up, but Friday afternoon, shockingly, somebody jumped in and bought about 30,000 JWN December 17 calls, started paying 17 cents, paid up to a quarter. They're currently 72 cents on the back of that Macy's price action. I thought that was interesting. They have shut that trade down for a massive win. Go them. It just goes, this is why you have to pay attention to that flow. I mean, it was clearly well-timed flow on that trade.
This was late. That's why. So I was like, how did this slip between our radar between this stuff on the odd block and oddities? But it went up late, right at the end of the session.
It went up 302. Yeah, it went up in the last half hour.
That's not a sign of dubious paper at all.
No, not at all. Not on a Friday. What? How could that possibly happen?
It's giving me just cold shivers of like the end of the day, quiet day going into a weekend, and then all of a sudden Goldman broker comes running over 259. How are these out of the money calls? I need 20,000. You're like, oh no, something is bad. This gives me the whiff of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a telltale sign. I am glad I jumped in on some of those calls with that paper because they were not mistaken in what they were doing. So Mark, it is a very, very index heavy day today. Not a lot of individual paper. Looking at the individual trades, the biggest thing I see is, I don't know, are you going to talk about INVZ?
I am not. Have at it, sir. The floor is yours.
All right. INVZ. We have lots of call rollers here. So this is InnoViz Technology. It is up 46 cents. A trader long the Jan 2 calls is selling to close and then picking up the 2.5s. And then we have a big calendar spread with a trader selling the July 2.5s to buy the Jan 2025. And then we also have some really short dated paper in Vivid Seats Inc. They're buying the December 7.5 calls for a dime. So there's all kinds of kind of weird, unusual, well-timed paper going up.
I was just looking. I know we talked about INVZ before. I'm trying to find what the trade was. I can't find it off the top of my head, but Mr. Meatball, you will be shocked to know that this morning, right around the opening bell, someone blasted away on 12,500 of the D17s for 45 cents in Nordstrom. Don't you feel bad for that person? Only a 3-banger.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, and they knew exactly what was going on, and they're a nice winner for it. Good for them.
Total of about nearly 30,000 have traded today, and they scooped 25,000 for nearly 16 cents on Friday. Listen, 15.8 cents. So yeah, a nice little scoop. out there on Friday and putting
excellent trade.
Unlike
well timed.
Everybody else we talk about, it seems like these days, actually taking it off, taking the money and getting the heck out of Dodge. So there you go, listeners. When you get the move, sometimes you got to take it off. Kind of like Ric Flair used to say, to be the man, you got to beat the man. To make the money, you got to close out the trade. Not quite the same thing, but sometimes, if you think about it, maybe it is. Let's keep on rolling. Let's go out to some names we're finding out there today, listeners. Let's see what's lighting it up. There's a lot of puts lighting it up. Let's see if we can find some upside call love. That's what you folks tend to like. Let's go out to Caesars first. Ticker symbol CZR. You know them, Caesars Entertainment. Trading $44, pretty much even today, off about 16 cents today. On the year, let's see, a year ago was 50 and a quarter. So they're actually down about 6 and a quarter, almost 12.5% on the year. In between, they've had some moments. They crushed them right away. In fact, getting into the start of the year, they crushed them almost to the low for the year. In fact, did they hit it then? No, they got close to it. Back on December 28th, they hit a little bit shy of $40, 39 and change. And then they rallied all the way back up. By February 3rd, they rallied with the rest of the market back to about $55 again. So they did a lot of living in the span of December to February. Sold off, rallied again. Then they sold off again mid-year in June down to about $41, late May, early June. Then they rallied again, this time to their high for the year of 60 and a quarter. They blew away their earnings in that quarter, so they had a nice pop, and that led to their high for the year. They pretty much could not sustain that. They started selling off immediately. By October, they got back down to the low for the year of 38 and a third. Since October, they've rallied from their low back to where they are right now of $44. So if you look from Halloween, they're up almost $6. So I guess glass half full, even though they are still down about 12.5% on the year. But Mr. Meatball, it seems like somebody thinks this upside trend shall continue, because somebody coming in this morning and looks like they scooped 10,001. Interesting number. Probably a one lot hanging out in the book there they had to take out. For 23 cents, lifting the offer. That is a 58 vol, listeners, if you are intrigued. The stock was right here, $44, so the stock hasn't budged. No earnings between now and D's expiration. The next announcement is in February. So Mr. Meatball, like we just talked about, somebody having some good luck to the upside in Nordstrom's. Do you have a similar spidey sense about these Caesar Entertainment D's 47s?
There's some positive rulings in Florida. You've got strength in Las Vegas Sands, Penn Gaming. So I'm a little surprised that Caesars is down, but nice little bullish play there. Looking for a very short-dated move.
So you like this one? You piggyback in the way you did Nordstrom's?
That seems a little out of the money for me. I don't know that I love it. I gotta unpack this one a little bit more, but so far I'm not in love with it.
All right, let's see if I can dangle one in front of you that intrigues you more. Let's roll out, pun intended, roll out of the gaming side and roll into some aluminum, shall we, listeners? This is Century Aluminum. I love the way the British say it. This is unfortunately not a British maker, but a US-based aluminum maker out of Kentucky. They spell it both aluminium and aluminum on their website. They want to be British. Trading 8 and a quarter right now, up about 36 cents or 4.5%. So a good day for some rolled aluminum. Let's see on the year. It's actually a decent year. They're up. Today's move put some green on the year, up about 2.5%. They were red before this. They were trading right around this level a year ago. Then they shot to their high when the rest of the market did, but a little bit later. Most things topped out in February. This topped out March 3rd, 1290. Then since then, it's been mostly a long, slow sell-off to the dark side. They hit their low 570, also around Halloween. We've seen a lot of names bottoming out around Halloween. Of course, we saw Fed and Company coming in not too soon thereafter, so not surprising there, but 570 was their low, October 26th. So since then, $2.5 to the upside out there. Not a bad little run, but also not a great year. Mr. Meatball. These might be a little bit more intriguing because these are now in the money. I'm not sure if you can still get these for this level. Probably not. The stock was $8. That's why. But someone scooped this morning 4,000 of the D's 8s. They paid only 30 cents, which looks pretty good in hindsight now with the stock at around 8 and a quarter. The stock was $7.99 when they put them up, so I got a feeling you're going to like these a little bit better, sir. These rolled aluminum upside calls, you like these now in the money?
Well, anytime a trade wins and they roll higher, it makes me want to investigate whether there's going to be some continued action there. So I don't hate the play, but it definitely is. It's definitely interesting. I like a good call roll.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if they roll these or if they keep them. They keep them on. It'd be interesting if they got out of them already. That'd be a pretty fast turnaround. But hey, you couldn't really fault them. They got a nice little move. Let's just see what's. Yeah, that's only 4,000. So that's pretty much all they've done so far. But hey, you couldn't fault them if they wanted to get the heck out of Dodge for a little bit of money out there. Let's see if these last ones also intrigue you, Mr. Meatball. I said we have still some decent names popping off, including Oracle after the bell today. Oracle trading 115.09, up about $1.50, so they're already popping 1.3% heading into their earnings. And on the year, it's been a pretty darn good year. A year ago was 81.25, so you don't hear Oracle bandied about in the Magnificent Seven, obviously, but obviously this rising tech tide has carried them up with it. Even though it seems like they kind of topped out a lot earlier than a lot of names as well. They're still up 33, almost 34 handles, or 41% on the year, so a good year. They were trading $80 back a year ago, but they shot up to their high of 126, actually 127.5, and that was in June off a nice pop that day. Then they hung out there for a while until September, right around that 126, 127 level. Then they missed estimates on their guidance last cycle, and that took them down a bit, back down to about the par strike, right around 100, again by Halloween. So since Halloween, they've managed to rebound about 15 handles out there, so obviously 15%. So a nice run since Halloween, and a good year, up 33 handles, even if they are still below their high of nearly 130 out there. So a little bit of a different trajectory than a lot of the other Magnificent Seven, which have mostly just been higher, with the exception of the last month or so. Let's see what's going on out there. Oracle, somebody else. 3 for 3 on the upside today, Mr. Meatball. Somebody liking the Dees 119, scooping 2,000 of these bad boys for $1.90. They scooped these earlier this morning when the stock was 114.5. So again, they got a nice little move in their favor already. As I mentioned, also there are earnings immediately after the bell today, so we'll know very soon whether these work out. Mr. Meatball, you like this little bit of not cheap, but a little bit of a very near dated earnings swing for the fences here, sir?
Yeah, it definitely looks like a big swing. What do you think, Mark?
It's a little bit pricey, but then again, it's $100 stock. You're gonna know after the bell if this $2 is worth $4 or 20 cents. So it's a lot. I'm with you.
There's a lot of action in Oracle today, but a lot of it looks like a lot of the paper looks closey-ish.
Yeah, there's a bigger print to the upside, but that looks like mostly closing. Yeah.
Yeah, so, it'll be interesting to see, when a bunch of people are long calls into earnings and they're taking their money before the earnings come out. I'm a little worried our friend is going to end up on the wrong side of this move. Maybe they're taking some stock off somewhere and using this as a hedge in case they're wrong. But the paper flow does not look really bullish today.
Yeah, aside from this one opening trade, there's a lot of people taking off calls as well. I'm with you. I kind of more like, if I'm going to do this, I like the 15-cent swing for the fences in Nordstrom's versus $2 here. Now you're talking about some real dollars on the table. Speaking of real money on the table, Uncle Mike's always slinging the real dollars. Let's see what he's got in store for us. A little bit of the old strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Strategy Block. And listeners, if you've been waiting for your travel guide on the quickest, most efficient route from Phoenix, Arizona, all the way to Tacoma, Uncle Mike's got you covered now. Have at it, sir. The floor is yours.
No doubt about that. Yeah, I was literally sitting in a traffic jam in Tacoma, pondering my thoughts, and I was thinking, I'm going to be in Phoenix later this week, and Steve Miller would be proud of me. Now the only thing I need to do is go to Philadelphia, Atlanta, and LA.
Yeah,
wait, I was in LA.
How many miles did you drive over the past week?
Well, so I drove from Seattle to Portland, flew from Portland to LA, And then I had just like a whole slew of people in LA, and then a bunch of I had stops between LA and Phoenix. So San Diego is just one of the stops, and it wasn't efficient to like fly from LA to San Diego and then go to all these stops along the way. So I'm like, well, it just makes more sense to drive. So that's what I did.
A painful drive, LA to San Diego. You know, just a horrible country. I feel for you, sir. I feel for you.
It's just ugly out there. I mean, I have to say, I mean, it's the West Coast is it's just beautiful. I mean, it's almost as nice as St. Charles.
What do you think? Do we need a St. Charles West? I often toy with an Options Insider West, right around that area. How about we go halvesies on it? What do you think?
It's not exactly cheap real estate out there.
No, we might need some investing partners for us for the La Jolla based studio for Options Insider / BitcoinReallySucks.com.
Oh, there you go. For sure. So what I wanted to talk, speaking of BitcoinReallySucks.com, I really wanted to I wanted to talk about the importance of cash right now in this environment with which we're living in. Don't get me wrong, options are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm not trying to take anything away from that. But what are you doing with your cash account? And so what I'm looking at on here, there's a variety of ways with which you can go of the money that you're not using. Because if you're not using your cash up till we started to have interest rates again a couple of years ago, it didn't really matter. You could just let your money sit in cash, or you could maybe buy a treasury and make 0.25% on it if you need the money sooner or whatever. But that's not the way things are anymore. And I really want to help you to have an understanding of our listeners on what's really at stake here. And so I'm just looking at a client right now. And so right now there's roughly $2.9 million. And so he would have, for the time being, he has roughly $1 million in cash. And the reason is that we're looking to move a few things, and we're traders. That's what we do. Covered calls. We do this. We do that. We move stuff around. That's what we do. But in the meantime, what we're doing is we have the money in a variety of areas that are interest-bearing accounts. And so let's just say that theoretically, half of that is in cash all year. Just half of that, let's say, because sometimes you'll use some of it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just want to stay in cash. But let's just say that you had 500 grand sitting in cash all year because you're moving money around. And sometimes you would have $1 million, sometimes you'd have less than $1 million. But let's just say on average, 500,000 is in cash all year. If that's the case, then if you're just letting it sit in the cash account at your broker, then you're making next to nothing on it. But if you're putting it into some type of a money market fund, and I'll just use BIL, I have a couple of them, but BIL is one of them, then you're missing out on 5%. And that comes out to, if you have 500 grand in cash on average every year, and once again, where I'm getting this number is that sometimes there's $1 million in cash, sometimes there's nothing in cash. But let's just say that that's what it averages out to throughout the whole year. You're missing out on 25 grand a year. And as traders, sometimes we can be guilty of being hyper-focused, thinking, oh, will this covered call expire? Will I get filled on this covered call? Is this one going to be in the money, out of the money? Or whatever the case may be, you lose track of other things. And this other thing is a major source of revenue in this market day and age. Every broker has some type of money market choice available. I would recommend researching yours. Interactive Brokers does actually pay a fairly generous amount if you're in the cash account, but just make sure you have an understanding of how it works, the rules they have behind it, and that type of thing. But the bottom line is that if you're not trading it, let the money work for you, because it actually works now for the first time in 20 years. And that is my strategy block for today.
All right, listeners, let's keep on rolling. It's time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. Before we get there, really quickly, Let's talk about our question of the week. Just went live right before showtime. Bit of a narrower focus this week. I'm not sure if this is going to resonate with everyone, but if you've been listening to Vol Views, you know this is a conversation we've been having for a couple of weeks now, which is quite simply back to everyone's favorite or perhaps least favorite inverse vol product, SVIX. They've made some changes to it recently, including incorporating VIX options, particularly VIX call options, into the mix now. It's been some debate, including from myself, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. There are both sides to this coin, as usual. So we thought we'd put it out to you folks at the end of the day to see if you like it or don't like it. We ask you quite simply, does SVIX adding VIX options into its holdings, particularly VIX calls, make you more or less likely to trade it? More likely, you think it's safer, which a lot of people have expressed that opinion, or less likely because maybe you are, a little bit concerned about the tracking. I think I fall into both camps, quite frankly. And then, or C, I also fall into this camp. You're still a little gun shy after XIV in 2018 out there. This just went live right before showtime, so it's still early going. Let's go out to the Meatball first. I know this is the question he and I have discussed on Vol Views. Mr. Meatball, where do you fall on this position? Are you more likely to trade it because it's safer, less likely because maybe the tracking is more of an issue, or you're still gun shy after XIV? And then B, where do you think our audience has fallen? And then C, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
I am thinking they're still gun shy because of XIV, even though maybe they shouldn't. And, I think that I think that for the week, it's going to be all about the Fed. It's going to be all about all kinds of stuff, and should be interesting. The Fed and CPI on Wednesday. Oracle this week, I think, is going to be interesting. But really, Wednesday is going to be the day to be on top of things. That's going to be when things are really interesting.
That will be the big day. Mr. Uncle Mike, I'm not sure if you have any skin in the inverse vol game, but if you feel like weighing in, have at it. Are you more or less likely to trade SVIX after their most recent change, even though you have been traveling coast to coast last week, so maybe you missed this one? And then B, and more importantly, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
I have no comment on that one because that's just not the world with which I live. Whatever clients ask about that, I refer them to the Greasy Meatball and the Rock Lobster because that's where they live. I understand it, but it's just not what I do. In terms of what I'm looking at the rest of the week, the Fed's the big one. CPI could also be a big one, but I think the Fed's the big one for sure. Seeing where we're at with that. Is it going to be a meh or is it going to be a roller coaster? And what are they going to say? That's kind of what I'm looking forward to. And then, of course, the natural argument between with Rick Santelli and everybody on CNBC, which is the next best thing to a Trump-Hillary Clinton debate, which the next best thing to that would be any pro wrestling interview. So that's kind of where I put those. And so that's what I'm looking forward to this week.
Ah, yes, the good old days of Trump Clinton. If we could only get those back in our lives, we would all be better. That music, listeners, means we are done for this week. Listeners, right now, again, this poll just went live a few minutes before showtime. But right now, 60% of you saying you're more likely to trade it. It is safer. I have seen a lot of you writing in saying, oh, well, because of this, I don't need to do whatever I was doing to hedge it anymore. I don't need to buy VIX calls, or I don't need to buy SVIX puts because they're doing it for me. I do see a certain logic to that. 20% saying less likely, poorer tracking, and 20% of you saying you're still gun shy after XIV. Again, there's no wrong answer to this. I really kind of just want to get a sense of where you folks are hanging your hat. And if you're like, Uncle Mike, this is outside of your purview, I get it. It's not for everybody. It's kind of deep in the vol weeds, but it's a question a lot of you have been asking us, so we thought we'd turn the question back around to you as we go around the horn. Let's start with the Uncleest of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, if I want a personalized Uncle Mike road trip to my door, how do I go about securing such things, sir?
Oh, boy. Check me out on my website, stcharleswealth.com. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW.
There you go. Also, check him out. BitcoinReallySucks.com is the place to go. And Mr. Meatball, where should they go for some great option pit musings?
Yeah, come to optionpit.com. I'm putting out content every single day that'll hopefully make you a better trader. Come and give us a look-see. You won't be disappointed.
Give them a look-see. See if you like what you find over there, optionpit.com. That is going to do it for us on the old OB. But we're back again in a little bit to break down all this madness. Is Mara going to make it on? Is there craziness going on the vol front? Is Bitcoin breaking 40K in the other direction? Is the vol popping? Let's find out on the crypto rundown coming up in a little bit. Our buddy, Mr. Greg Magadini, who, when he's not talking equity vol, and man, he's been on me forever to get on that show. He loved coming on Vol Views. But his main go-to, of course, is on the crypto rundown. He'll be joining us later today to break down all this madness out there in the world of crypto vol. Again, you don't have to love crypto to like some vol and some volume, and we got that out there for you in spades. That's coming up in a little bit. If you're listening live, you'll get it in your ear holes after this show. For the rest of you, hang out on the on-demand side. Of course, it'll be hitting the network a little bit later today. Of course, if you want to join us on the Pro, including for a whole bunch, I think the technical term is a freaking boatload of Pro Q&As, then join us. Got 2 coming at you tomorrow. Got our buddy, Mr. Steve Sosnick, coming in from IB, as well as after that, our old buddy, Mr. Nick Howard, the creator of Bantix, all the tech we use over there on Twifo, as well as he's doing some crazy AI stuff now. It's bonkers. So we have a lot of good fun. So if you got questions on futures options or on any side of options trading with Mr. Steve, then get those in for tomorrow. Double dose of Pro Q&As. If you haven't joined the Pro yet, what are you waiting for? TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. It's quite the party. Double palooza coming at you this week. Then we're back again with our rest of our content, including the next episode of the Option Block on Thursday. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.